Hello. Okay, let's get the all-student meeting started. So, welcome everyone to the second all-student meeting. Well done and brave in the horrible, rotten weather to come and debate how the unions run. So yeah, well done for that. We've got a really good turnout here, so just genuinely everyone, well done for turning out. We're going to go to apologies. Does anyone have any apologies from the floor for any councillors that haven't been able to make it tonight? No? Okay. Announcements. Do you have any announcements they want to make? This can be about stuff being, happening on campus this week. Yes, Miguel at the back. Okay, we didn't get a microphone to you then, but Miguel, your voice is well loud enough, so well done. Remy, we'll try and get a mic to you. Do we have anyone to carry a mic?
Yeah, Yoli.
No. I didn't hear that. Okay, just everyone remember it's a safe space, just everyone's got to respect what people say and, don't slate them for their views at this meeting. Any other announcements from the floor? Yes, Erin.
This week we have launched the Help Us Help You survey. It's on the SU website. We really want to hear all of your opinions, and tomorrow myself and Cosmo March are in the WBS building for a couple of hours at 12 o'clock if you want to come and have a chat with us.
Okay, great. Any more? If not, we'll move to Cosmo's got a question.
It's not a question, it's just an announcement. Part-time officer briefing. If you're interested in running the elections, there's one tomorrow afternoon. And for full-time officers, for sabbatical officers, there's one on Thursday afternoon. Thanks, guys.
Okay, fantastic. We'll move to questions to officers. So I've got one here. This is to Cosmo. How many blog posts have you made this academic year?
I think about 2. That's not true. That's technically this academic year for my job role, so thanks for clarifying that, though.
Okay, cool. We got any questions from the floor? Remy, yes.
Will any sabbatical officer be brave enough to kind of applaud the SSLC and the history department for organising replacement lectures when education is at risk?
Lucy?
Thank you. Something I'd like to say is I guess everyone's quite clear on my opinion on the replacement lectures. I think in any other circumstance I'd be the first to applaud an SSLC for taking the initiative to set up their own extra educational activities. I think on this occasion the context in which the lectures has taken place is disappointing, and as a sabbatical officer, I feel that education is more at risk from the unfair pay paid to our postgraduate tutors and the way in which staff are treated. And I think a better way of improving our education would be to support those tutors in their fight for fair pay. Thank you.
Okay, questions, officers. We'll go Matt, and then we'll take you, Tom.
Addressing an issue which concerns the whole student body, we are now nearly 4 months away from the greatest sporting event in our calendar. And let me please ask to the officers, what more is being done to provide spaces for students to watch the World Cup on campus?
Would anyone like to take that?
Obviously, it's the World Cup, happens once every 4 years. We have a lot of TV screens here. It'd be pretty stupid to think that we're not going to put some kind of provision for watching football in. But good question, thanks.
Okay. Tom Rayner.
I haven't said anything yet. In their statement about the strikes last week, UCU, in announcing the strikes on Thursday, didn't mention any postgraduate issues at all, and purely said this was a strike about the 1% pay rise. If this is the case, will Warwick Student Union still be supporting it if this is not a strike about postgraduate issues, purely about a 1% pay rise for lecturers? And secondly, will they be supporting a marking boycott by lecturers as well?
Lucy.
Okay. Guess what? It's me again. What I'd like to say is postgraduate tutors are members of the UCU. They're also members of our students' union, which I think is more important at this point. The postgraduate tutors have faced a cut of 5 to 6% in the last few years. I don't think that's acceptable. In terms of the strike itself, I would be lying if we were saying that we were not concerned by the potential impact on students. However, whether we agree with the strike or not, we still stand by the principles behind it. Fair pay is a key issue for a students' union, and we support the fight for fair pay. I think at a later date we will be commenting about the essay marking, but I just want to say that we can't ignore the issues of postgraduate tutors. Postgraduates make up 50% of our union, and I am continually disappointed and frustrated by this inability to take an issue and think about it in a way that's wider than our own selves. We do not exist in a vacuum as a student. We have to take responsibility for our actions. And our actions here do have the potential to negatively impact on postgraduates that teach, and as an indirect result, negatively impact on the staff that teach us too. And I'm just asking, and that's what that blog post was about, and I guess what these questions are aiming at is that blog post. That's what that blog post is about. It's about taking responsibility for our actions. It's about thinking about the context in which we act. And particularly as history students, I'm disappointed that people aren't able to examine the wider context of their actions. I think, either you don't care about the context in which you're acting, or you don't understand it, and I don't think either of those are to be applauded.
Remy Osman.
Does Ben agree with the view of Sam, aged 27, from Manchester, and her political views expressed in the Sun newspaper today?
I'm not going to answer that question because I can't be bothered.
Okay. Aidan Hocking.
Moving away from discussing a scab Facebook group with less than 50 people in it, are there any plans to commemorate the anniversary of the death of Warwick student Kevin Gately in a protest against the National Front? Because obviously that anniversary is this June, I think.
Does anyone want to take this, Ben?
Aidan, we had a little chat about this before, and it's definitely something that I think we'd like to do. I know we spoke before about potentially renaming some sort of room. It's not something that we have taken on since then, but it is something that I think a lot of us are sympathetic towards and would like to do.
Okay. Cindy, is that a question?
Given the recent death of the postgrad student near Tesco's, what more is being done to get the zebra crossing put in?
Yeah, no, completely agree. It's definitely right to bring this up at this point. Obviously, the Students' Union and officers have been lobbying both the university and the council to do something about this dangerous area of road for some years now. I myself have brought up with the university already this year, and they said, essentially the council have said they're not going to do it. Given what's happened, I think the council will have no choice but to do something with that road. The union has chosen to wait at least a couple of weeks to sort of, out of respect for what has happened, before going at any sort of full-on campaign. But our first approach would be just to contact the council and see if that is one of their plans. I know there's a petition going around. I myself have signed it, and we're deciding as officers whether or not it's something we should be publicising on a website, getting people to sign it. But again, it's quite a sensitive issue, so we've kind of tried to have a bit of caution with that. Ben wants to say something.
So can I just add to that? There's a subcommittee at the university called Supporting Students in the Community, and which we sit on, and that committee has already now sent a joint letter of all the representatives on there, including the Students' Union, Warwick Accommodation, and the local police who sit on there, and we sent a joint letter to the Director of Estates here, so we're putting pressure on the university to do their bit. The university are not resisting at all. They're so behind this as well, and the hope is that very soon there'll be something going out from the university and the Students' Union pushing the council on this.
Okay, let's crack on to motions then. So we've got no more page 3, removing the Sun newspaper from campus, and proposer Louisa Ackerman. You can just sit out. Okay, all right. Firstly, do you want to declare your interest, Aidan?
Yeah, I've got to declare a conflict of interest in this motion as both somebody who signed a petition and supports the petition. So I'll be handing over to Cosmo to be deputy chair for this one.
All right, cheers. Go on, Lee.
Hi everyone, my name's Louisa and I'm the Women's Officer here at Warwick SU. I'm here today to present the No More Page 3 motion. Now, I'm hoping you all know what page 3 is, because under the university's bylaws of offensive and pornographic material, I can't actually show an image of it in this meeting. For anyone who doesn't know, page 3 is a feature of a topless woman which runs daily in the Sun newspaper, and it's consistently the largest featured image of any woman in the newspaper. So, why do we want it gone? We believe it is inherently sexist for the primary image of a woman to be one showing her bare breasts for the purposes of sexual titillation. It conveys the message that a woman's primary purpose is to be sexually available. But when figures range from 300,000 women being sexually assaulted each year, to 1 in 4 who have been sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and 1 in 7 during their time at university, is it wise for us as a university to perpetuate the notion that women are sexual objects? We don't think it is. The page 3 image runs in contrast to the images of men in the newspaper who are featured in the context of actual news. They're politicians, they're athletes, and they're world leaders. All things that women would be too in far greater numbers if, as a society, we didn't tell them that how they look is more important than what they do. We're not naive. We know Coscutter removing the Sun, or the Sun removing page 3, won't be the end of sexism. But it would be a small victory against the wider culture that teaches girls to be sexual to comply with men's desires, but shames them if they explore their own sexuality. Against the culture that discourages women from pursuing positions of leadership and power, because these are things we are told belong to the men, whilst we exist predominantly to stand around and look pretty. Indeed, as well as sexist, we believe page 3 to be inherently racist too. In 43 years of its existence, only 5 non-white women have been featured as models. This promotes the othering of people of non-white ethnic backgrounds. Every facet of our university should be striving for progress, and yes, this includes our supermarkets. Over 30 other universities and colleges across the United Kingdom have already removed the Sun from their campus shops on the basis of its misogynistic content. We want to pass this motion to gain SU support, and for the SU to put pressure on Coscutter to stop selling the Sun. In turn, to send the message that we value the women students of Warwick as more than sexual objects. A feature as inherently sexist and objectifying as page 3 has no place on our campus.
Oh, okay, sorry, didn't realise you were done. Thought everyone just like clapped in between or something. Anyone against? Does anyone like to speak against this motion? Just raise your hands if you do. If not, we'll go to the seconder. Okay, seconder Ben Sundell.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so there are a number of reasons why I think that page 3 is wrong. First, let us be very clear that page 3 is sexist. The biggest picture in Britain's most read newspaper every day is of a young woman topless. More often than not, appearing next to all the pictures of male sportsmen and male politicians in suits. This picture is just inside the front cover of the biggest selling newspaper. The front page is where all the most important news gets put. And the reality is, they're putting a picture here of a woman in just her pants at the front of a newspaper, like this, tells readers that what is really most important about a woman is the way they look and their sexual allure. It doesn't exactly show a care for what they have to say, for their achievements, or what their talents are. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are of the opinion that porn mags or lad mags, which are available in the very same shop, are far worse. And in terms of explicitness alone, they probably are. Now, this is not what this campaign is arguing. Page 3 casualizes and normalizes sexism. Young children, for example, can pick up the Sun and look at page 3 at any time. When children watch TV, we have a watershed so that we know that things after 9 o'clock may contain sex or nudity or swearing. When we watch a film with children, there are certificates to help us decide if the content is appropriate. When buying newspapers, there's no age at which you can't buy it, whilst porn mags are placed on the top shelf. Page 3 pictures placed on reachable shelves next to other papers and children's comics and things like that actively casualize sexism. So why should we ban it here or vote to put pressure to ban it on our campus? Let's not be afraid of trying to ban something or making a stand for something that we disagree with, even if it's just the principle of it. For me, I believe that this campus, which I'm proud to be a part of, should be built upon the principles which we agree with. Countless times, I have had to fight this rhetoric of the Students' Union being some sort of body that takes outlandish decisions on people's behalf, when actually the Students' Union, this students' meeting, is your collective voice. Voting in favour of this motion is not about taking freedom out of people's hands. The freedom is in your hands. This is your campus. It should be moulded by how you want it to be, by the values that you hold and the values that you want others to hold. So voting for this motion is not going to cause anything to be acted upon you, but if you believe with us that as a campaigning organisation, as a body proactively against sexism and fighting for equality, that we should stand together and that your collective voice should be heard at the university and in their outlets, then I urge you to stand against this outdated feature, have your voice heard on this campus, and support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just give one more chance for people to formally speak against before opening up to the floor. No? Okay, points from the floor. Nick Swain.
It's more a question for Ben or Louisa if you wanted to answer as well. So obviously other unions have banned the Sun, and if you run your own union shop you can obviously remove it the day after. But if we were to pass this policy, what's your experience so far talking to the university about it? Like, what's their general view of if we were to pass this, what would their reaction straight away be?
Well, the first time we emailed manager of Costcutter, who hasn't engaged with us at all. He forwarded it straight to Peter Dunn, who's the head of communications here at Warwick, who has been less than impressed with us, to say the least. He compared page 3 to the naked rowing calendars and said, if we're willing to support nudity in that context, we should be willing to accept page 3. He doesn't like us, and I think it would probably take a bit more pressure, which is what we're hoping to get today. If we could get the SU to say we are anti-page 3, then they can argue that it's just a fringe minority of students, as they have done before, trying to be radical.
So you've not really spoken to them directly about this yet, but it'll be a case of if
we
it
have
passes,
tried, but no, they don't want to talk to us.
Okay.
I think Ben wants to.
Okay. If you want to speak, just raise your card, raise your hand. You want to get Cosmo to notice you, and he'll write your name down. Jack Rankin.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed the beginning of the debate, so I'm sorry if I repeat any points that have been made. I think there's a fundamental point here about what the union should do. And for me, the union should be a fairly basic organisation. It should be an outlet for an operation where sports clubs and society should exist, and then it should do some fairly basic things for students. When the union gets off track from its basic principles like this, it can often alienate a lot of the student body that is largely apathetic, and then it can become irrelevant both to the student body and to the university, and can be felt to have the sort of, it lowers its impact where it should really be concentrated. This motion essentially is a minority fringe issue for most students. If you ask most students what they think about the Sun, they'll go, couldn't care less. The people that are left, there might be about 100 people that read the Sun, and then you've got the probably very small part of people who are political, half who will say, oh, it's a disgrace, and the other half who will just go, you know, if people want to read the Sun, then they can read the Sun. So I think there's 2 points here really, that it's off, when it comes off the union's core message, it makes the union's core message less valuable to both students and the wider community. And really as a university, do we want to be saying that we should be reducing what people can read on campus? That seems a fairly bizarre point to start with. So there are a few points I'd like to make.
Okay, Matt Davis.
So, to the surprise of probably no one, I'm going to disagree with Jack. I think my opinion personally is that, you know, we have a welfare officer in the Students' Union. That implies the Students' Union should somehow be responsible for our students' welfare. Do people generally agree with that? Like, I think, for me, No More Page 3 is a lot to do with the welfare issue. In that we're looking at the welfare of a lot of female students on campus who are maybe perturbed at the idea of page 3 in general, and I think that welfare is significantly more important than the welfare of those people who maybe, you know, really, really want to read The Sun. And also, this isn't about The Sun in itself as a newspaper. I heard a lot of arguments saying, oh, I think The Sun is rubbish, but I support people's right, you know, to read it. It's like, well, who are you to judge The Sun is rubbish? This is merely an issue about saying to the nation's most favourite paper that we don't believe page 3 belongs in that nation's most favourite newspaper. And we're, you know, quite happy for The Sun to return to campus as soon as it removes page 3. This is a nationwide movement to pressure The Sun. And I think Warwick, as a part of that, and for the welfare of the female students, and others who may be offended by page 3's existence, I think the SU has a duty to protect the welfare of those students.
Lucy Gill.
I'm going to go back to... Oh, can you hear me? Sorry. I'm going to go back to Jack's point about sort of wider than this and what a students' union is. I think we should have an opinion. We again, as I said earlier, we do not just exist in a vacuum here at Warwick and we can protect ourselves from anything but our seminars and our lectures. We are citizens of a society and we should fight for what we believe in and be able to say it here just as we would anywhere else. We should expect the same standards from our university and our union as we expect from any part of our society. And to dismiss this campaign as nothing but some kind of radical fringe is hugely disrespectful to every single person on this campus that identifies themselves as a woman. You can't dismiss the feelings of easily 50% of the people that go here just because you feel this is a token issue. It's not right. And again, I go back to the point, we do not exist in a vacuum. We should have an opinion. This is what a students' union is here to do, and I'm disappointed by any suggestion that we're just here to provide sports and societies. They're a hugely important part of what we do, but also we should be here to comment on issues, to have an opinion, to form the society that we think is the right thing to do. And I'm just so frustrated by this idea that we should be quiet. We shouldn't be quiet, we should be loud, and this is what we support.
John LePage.
Fortunately, we don't have to subscribe to Jack's narrow definition of our principles, because actually we already have union principles and it's much longer than that. It tells us we're supposed to be doing things which we think are good for the community. And don't worry about this idea that we're banning it from campus. You'll still be able to bring a copy of Sun onto campus. There's nothing here that says you're not allowed into the union if you're holding a copy of the Sun, other than existing rules which forbid us from showing pornography. So the idea that this is somewhat kind of stylistically saying, no, we're not saying this, is wrong. All we're asking is to politely ask that they stop selling it in these buildings, and the purpose of that is to put pressure on them to stop putting the page 3 in the Sun. And once they remove it, which they have said they are considering doing, then they'll come back. Simple as.
Aidan Harking.
Yeah, I think I've been around this university for 4 years. Every single time a motion like this comes up, we basically get a load of student wannabe politicians standing up and talking as if the SU is a government trying to ban things and take away our freedoms. At the end of the day, Costco is a shop, it sells newspapers. The proprietors of shops have the right to sell or not sell whatever newspaper they like. You know, as customers, presumably we're allowed to tell them our opinion, unless you think they should be mandated to sell every newspaper that there currently is. I just think, you know, at the end of the day, it's nothing to do with freedom. It's basically just the SU saying, well, most students who voted in our election don't want you to sell the Sun. Could you not sell the Sun, please? And no one's even being forced to do anything. It's less of an issue than, say, Bacardi or whatever, because we don't even have a shop which sells the Sun.
Number 22.
So waste of time.
In labelling the Sun as inherently sexist, has Ben and Louisa considered the fact that they gave such great coverage to the death of Lady Thatcher and the feminist icon she was?
Okay, number 39.
Some of the points that have been made have been talking about protecting people. I don't understand what are you protecting people from when you get rid of the Sun off campus? What are you protecting them from? What, a pair of breasts? We've seen breasts since, 1 year old? That's what we're protecting people from. That's what we talk about protection. And then you speak about how all these people on campus disagree. Where are your statistics? You say, 50% of people disagree with this and that. Okay, show me where you've got that figure from. I'd like to know.
37. 37? It's down at the front there.
I feel if there was a paper being sold nationally that tacitly concerned and promoted racism, we would be treating this much more seriously than the sexism issue. It's often downplayed. Any sort of paper that encourages an atmosphere in which women are treated as objects, and a remark that up until quite recently they used to have a little joke thing, which the joke was basically, this woman couldn't have said this because she's dumb, is a massive problem, and it's one that feeds back into a culture of sexism that is endemic in our society. So that's who you're protecting. You're protecting women across campus and also men who are victimized by sexism too. It's challenging negative opinions about women and negative opinions about gender. So don't say this isn't a joke. Well, don't say this is a joke.
Louisa Ackerman.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. It's not about protecting people from breasts. I have breasts, they're fine, they're great, I'm happy to have them. It's about protecting people from a wider culture of sexism which you don't experience as a man. You don't know what it's like to walk down, well, I presume you don't know what it's like to the extent of the women in this room, what it's like to walk down the street and be objectified for how you look, to be walking as a 12-year-old girl in your school uniform, to be shouted at from cars, to be honked at, to be told that your body is somehow public property, that to go to a club and be grabbed by men you don't know. Just all these things that are endemic and are somehow normalized and accepted by things like the Sun, by the largest image of any woman in a newspaper being one who's there for no other reason than to sexually excite men. It's ridiculous. It's not about breasts. It's about sexism that we want to protect people from. Oh, and the 50% figure relates to the amount of women on campus, but there have been nearly 1,000 signatures on our petition to get rid of it from campus so far. So there's a statistic for you if you're into empiricism, I guess. Enjoy.
Okay, I feel most of the arguments have been discussed. If anyone has any new contributions to make. Matt, you're still on the list. Do you want to take it? Thanks, Matt. Yes, Jack. We'll get a mic to you, mate. We'll get a mic.
You're right, there is a vote amongst all students, and the overwhelming winner will be, I couldn't give a flying, who will be the result.
Okay. Aidan, new point?
Well, I can only presume that most students will hear that there is an ASM on and say, I'm very willing to defer judgment and allow the people who do want to make the decision for me. Why are non-voters always assumed to be against whatever is passed? By definition, you don't know their opinion. They're not necessarily saying, I really want the sun to be on campus, are they? If a majority of people who have an opinion are in favour of this, it should go through.
Jack, do you want to respond to that? It looked like...
The point is, there's no such... The student body does not have a collective opinion on whether the sun should be sold at Cost Cutter. So the Students' Union should not be pretending to say, on behalf of Warwick students, we don't think the sun should be in Cost Cutter, because Warwick students don't have an opinion, largely, on whether page 3 should be in Cost Cutter. That's what I'm saying, why we should go back to the core points. But I mean, we can do this all day. This is a philosophical disagreement,
Okay, new points. Miguel?
Sit next to each other next time.
Fellow students, my point is not about philosophy. I feel all the points being raised here have been excellent, and I firmly stand in favour of this motion to ban page 3 from Cost Cutter. My point is simply about the statistics. In all student meetings in the past, there have not been more than 1,000 students voting. In fact, there have been less. But yet, already more than 1,000 students have signed the No More Page 3 petition to ban Cost Cutter from our campus.
I think he meant ban the Sun newspaper.
English is his first language. Be easy on him.
Yeah, exactly, to ban the Sun from our campus. That said, vote for this motion. Cheers.
Okay, but 37 if you've got a new point. If not, I'm really eager to move to summing up speeches. No? Okay, summing up speeches. Louisa Ackerman.
I didn't really have one. Vote for No More Page 3. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that'll do. That's great. Anyone against? There was no one against at the start, so can't imagine. No? Ben, final word?
I would just say, I do disagree with what you just said, Jack. Every student has a voice. Every student has a vote in this. So, I want this to be the collective voice of the Students' Union. We stand by values of equality. We should be proactive in that. So please do vote for this motion.
Okay. And with that, we'll move to an indicative vote. So everyone in favour of passing the motion, No More Page 3, removing the Sun newspaper from campus, raise your cards or your hands. Yeah. Okay. And everyone against? Abstentions? Okay, that passes with a fair majority. Okay, supporting the two-tick scheme, we've got Sam Fry to propose. Kat's doing the first speech. Yeah, Kat. Can we get a microphone to Kat?
Oh, hello. Shall I step on there? I will. Fuck it. Sorry, that's really rude. Okay, sorry about that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Kat. I'm the welfare officer at the Students' Union. I'm going to keep this quite short because I'm not feeling very well, and I don't think that there's much to discuss because I think this is such a no-brainer. So first of all, I'll talk about what the two-tick scheme is. The two-tick scheme is a recruitment guarantee by an employer that a person who identifies as disabled and meets all the basic conditions of a job is guaranteed an interview. This is to ensure that people who may not be effectively able to represent themselves on paper for reasons beyond their control are given an opportunity for employers to meet them. It isn't about positive discrimination, this is about accessibility, which is at the heart of the SU values. As I said, this really does seem to me like a no-brainer. As students, we're not just here to passively learn, we really care about the people who are teaching us, and we care about the whole host of other people who work here to ensure that we have the best university experience possible. I think it's right that we consider the principles and ethics in which we learn, and the standards we apply to wider society should apply here too. So essentially, I really hope that you vote yes to this motion so that we as a union can lobby the university for this scheme, which I believe will only improve the standard of teaching and learning at Warwick. Thank you.
Anyone against? No? Okay, we'll move to Sam Fry seconding the motion. You'll wave. Okay, points from the floor. Nick Swain.
No, I don't think so.
Nick Swain asked, does this cost money? And Kat said no.
I agree with you. I don't think it costs any money.
Any other points from the floor? If not, we'll move to summing up speeches. Okay? Kat?
Okay, yeah, as I said, I really do think this is a no-brainer. This is about accessibility, and I think we should all vote for it.
Sandra, on the opportunity to speak, you'll wave. Wave it, okay. We'll take an indicative vote. Everyone in favour of passing the motion, supporting the two-tick scheme? Everyone against? Abstentions? Okay, that passed overwhelmingly. Near unanimous. Okay, clarifying rules regarding themed events. We didn't have anyone down to propose it because they withdrew. So, is there anyone from the floor who wants to speak in favour of this motion? No. If not, we'll move to opposition. Sorry. No, okay. Sorry. Definitely no one in favour of speaking for this motion. Excuse, do you want to speak in favour of the motion?
I was the proposer of the motion at Student Council, and I believe Student Council, as an elected body, was representative enough to vote on this motion. However, against my wishes, the motion was sent to the ASM. Firstly, let me clarify, this motion does not ban anything. It is already a rule in the union that you cannot wear discriminatory costumes. What this motion does is simply clarify that, so that if someone is offended by an event theme at the SU, there will be better structures in place for them to make a complaint about it. All this motion does is simply clarify already existing rules on discriminatory themed events. Nothing is banned outright. Another thing that this motion does is mandate the SABs to provide training to clubs and societies on non-discriminatory event organisation. So this motion is aiming to educate people on how best to run events that are welcoming to everybody. Again, nothing is being banned. However, I have a problem with a majority voting on minority rights. This is essentially what this is. The opposition feel that their right to wear offensive costumes is more important than the person's right to not be offended by a costume. This is a type of motion that should not be voted on at ASM, and so I propose from the floor that this motion should not be voted on today.
Okay. All right, thanks. Anyone against the motion? Aaron Bowater. Get a mic to Aaron, he's over there.
If you want to. That's a first for me. That's quite nice. I'll start at the end, which seems a pretty obvious place not to start. I actually agree that this is not the place to be debating this motion. I think that things like race, sex, discrimination on sexual orientation, gender, etc., is not something that should be discussed in this forum, because what happens is that those opposing motions such as this, there are people who use it for different ends, different means, and it gets convoluted into this big debate and discussion that we don't actually want to have. I've written some notes on here. So I join Hugh Edwards in the proud tradition of wankers who use iPads to make a speech instead of pieces of paper. My opposition is that I think the motion goes so far to misunderstand meanings of racism, ageism, homophobia, and other intolerances, and tars them very much with the same brush. I'm very concerned with the bannings of things like, the opposition and, banning of things like political beliefs, appearance. That would see the end of Warwick Labour's Dress as a Tory event, which I'm a keen advocate of. I think that we have the concern of, by having this at the ASM, it potentially alienates students who wouldn't otherwise be involved in union politics, because this is not the place we should be having this debate. It's just not. It's a debate that's important, but it should not be at the ASM. My opposition also includes the fact that I believe there are already policies in place by the union to deal with controversial and costumes that people find offensive. They can go to the sabbatical officers and talk to them about it. I think we need to be very sensible with this. A couple of weeks ago, the people I circled with decided to mock the appearance of my friend Thomas Preece over there for his inability to dress himself. It clearly hasn't worked because he continues to wear that god-awful coat. You weren't offended, were you, Tom? No, you were, a little bit. And I think that my opposition really is born out of, one, this isn't the place to be having this debate. Two, I worry that the banning element of it and everything that's described, including appearance, including political beliefs, goes so far that it's either all acceptable or none of it's acceptable. And let's not forget, this would create one hell of a job for the staff here. How are we going to decide who is and isn't wearing a costume that is or isn't offensive? Are we going to have someone on the door? And if they are on the door, what's their costume going to be that is or doesn't offend other people? That's the basic crux of my debate. It's a debate we need to have. I totally agree. This is not the place to have it. Yeah, that's it, really. Thank you.
Seconder of the motion. Do we have a seconder from the floor? Aidan?
I'm not really being a seconder, but can I propose a procedural motion?
No, well, I'd rather get through the points from the, if that's okay, and then feel free. Seconder, if not, yes, go on, 37.
Hi, I'll keep this short. I love fancy dress as much as the next person, but there is a serious issue in this university with a lot of offensive costumes, and I admit that it's often quite hard to say where the line is, but I mean, there's been pictures on Instagram recently that have shown that students at this university do actually still black up, which is incredibly offensive. And so basically, although I agree this probably isn't the place to discuss it either, but I thought I'd be slacking to anyway, it's a really serious issue, and one that shouldn't just be reduced to, I dress up a bit funny, is this offensive? That's all I have to say on the matter, really.
Okay, second speech against? No? Okay, points from the floor. Aidan Hucking.
Yeah, I'd actually like to propose procedural motion 9, refer this matter to a specified body or officers. Seeing as both the first speech in favour and against suggested this isn't the right place to be discussing this, I'm wondering how people would feel about sending it back to Union Council where a compromise could be reached using an amendment process, for instance, which this lacks. You know, Aaron has mentioned some specific things he doesn't think should be as strictly prohibited. So perhaps if we sent it back to Union Council, we could try and work out a compromise and have a straight yes or no vote.
Sorry, Aidan, we can't actually do that procedural motion because we're not core. At an all-student meeting, we can't use procedural motions like that. We're not core. Sorry, Aidan. Points from the floor. Yes, Miguel.
Mr. Chair, can I just seek clarification on that? Because when we have not got quorum, we can't do substantive decisions like amending the resolution. But what we can do is do procedural decisions like procedural motions. That is the case for pretty much anybody that makes decisions in the UK and anywhere in the world.
Oh God. I'll adjourn the meeting just for 1 minute whilst I seek clarification on this, and then we'll get to the bottom of that just quickly. Just 1 minute. I had to bang the hammer at one point in the meeting. Yeah, sorry, I've sought clarification. We can't use that procedural motion because we're not quorum, I'm afraid. Any other points on the floor? Yes, John. And sorry, Aisha's actually been waiting for quite a long time. John, I'm sure you won't mind. And if you want to talk, just grab Aidan's attention now and he'll write your name down. Aisha.
Like I said in my speech, this motion is pretty much just clarifying things, like all these rules are already in place. You're not allowed to have discriminatory themes or discriminatory costumes, and this doesn't actually ban anything. The whole point of this motion is to encourage people who are offended by costumes to feel supported by the SU and have structures in place whereby they can complain and be supported by the bylaws. There is no banning outright or anything like that. And in terms of people policing it, well, it is up to the person who is offended. They can complain, and then they have the support of the bylaws to back them up. There is not, it is not something whereby everyone's just going to start banning every single costume about every single thing. And yeah, pretty much, I don't agree with the fact that this has been taken to ASM, but at the moment, this is something which is already there, so it's not really controversial. I don't see why it's being claimed as such.
John LePage.
Basically, I mean, we do want to take this back to council, because when we were at council, we were saying, you know, if you don't like the wording of this, amend it, because the entire point was literally to just put in the bit about events that, you know, the rules regarding racism, sexism and so forth still apply here. And there were a lot of good points raised by the people who opposed that wording, but they didn't choose to make amendments. We can't make amendments here, so maybe we should all just stop talking about this, vote this down, and something better be brought, because it doesn't serve our clubs and societies to have a set of rules which doesn't include the rule that says, you know, if you make an event, it can, you know, some people might be offended and you can be held accountable. Because they can be held accountable, so we should state that, because otherwise they might trip up on that. And some of the issues that were brought up is that our disciplinary things don't really have enough granularity to give a proper, proper punishment, because there's nothing like remonstration in there. But at the same time, the union could decide to give any punishment they want to a society, which I think is wrong. I don't think we should have in the bylaws that literally the union can turn around and do whatever they want to a society. I think that we should have defined things. And I just think that we should just stop talking about this, vote it down, and we'll bring back one which actually deals with all the things that people should have amended in.
Joe Jones.
I think the fundamental problem that comes when you start talking about offence, I'm offended by this insults me, is how far do you go with it? Are religious people allowed to ban gay and lesbian events because they are offended by such? Are gay and lesbian societies allowed to ban extreme religious societies? Where do you draw a line of saying, well, okay, I understand you're slightly offended, but we can't do anything? You just get into this tit-tat, awful back and forth. What really should be happening with this motion is we should be aiming to get rid of it so we can sit down and have a reasonable, grown-up, modern discussion about this.
Cindy. We'll get a microphone to you. There we go.
Yeah, I think what you've just said has kind of just reflected the fact that you don't really understand what this motion was meant to do. It doesn't say anywhere that such events should be banned or that societies should be bound by certain rules. It's just that if someone's offended, they can go and complain. And it's not up to you to judge, if someone should be offended by something or not. Like, if you feel threatened by something, if you feel unsafe, you should be able to complain about it. And I think a lot of the arguments have been covered, but this motion has been really badly represented on Facebook. I've seen the Facebook page. I think it was pitched as the SU shouldn't be banning sombreros or something like that. But people at this university have blacked up before. That's hideously offensive. It's really racist. So to reduce this argument to banning sombreros, it's we're not trying to ban anything. It's just to complain about things if you feel offended by it. Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Aaron Bywater.
Yeah, again, not a particularly fresh, new or original point. I think that most of our opposition is born out of a desire to, as John has said, seek further clarification. We're concerned about a level of blank checkism, i.e. one person is offended by this, it might be a bit frivolous or whatever, and it rolls away. I agree with what you said in terms of, and I was just saying to Aisha, we're very much opening ourselves up to charges of, with it being in this environment, of being called all sorts of things under the sun. I don't think that's fair on either of us. We're opposing the motion because we're concerned about the wording, we're concerned about this level of blank checkers and what is and isn't acceptable. And yeah, I know it's an old point, but that's basically what I'm trying to clarify.
Okay. James Anderson.
Hi, I'd just like to ask the student, what actually is the current procedure for complaining about stuff like this?
I couldn't hear
that. Hi, so the procedure is you would write an email to me and either the sports or societies officer, depending on which, whether it's a sport or a society, and we would look into that depending on the nature of the complaint.
Miguel?
Fellow students, I think that we've heard many good arguments. Obviously, nobody here is defending, backing up, or any racist sort of costumes. And the concerns raised by the opposition to this motion are valid. I think there's one thing to take home. This meeting has not been quorate ever since it's been begun sort of its existence. To be quorate, this meeting needs to have 260 or something like that students here.
239.
239. This atrium can't hold 239 people. We'd all be a bit cramped.
No.
And the point to take is that in our all-student meetings, the amount of students who vote are several times less than at student council elections. At student council elections, several times more students vote than in all-student meetings. And we have to question this sort of discourse that sometimes happens at student council, where student council sort of, washes its hands like Pontius Pilate and sort of says, oh, it's nothing to do with me, it's too controversial for me, oh, I'm not representative. Many of you voted for your student council representatives, and it's time that we put democracy back in its rightful place, and we have sensible discussions about what are the responsibilities of different bodies in our students' union democratic process. Cheers.
Okay. New points now. Yoli.
I'm a member of Composite Group, so I'm not going to speak on the motion, but just going back to a point a little while ago, someone, I can't remember who it was, made some comments about religious societies maybe wanting to ban gay and lesbian students, or gay and lesbian students wanting to ban religious societies, and I think that's really harmful. Religious people aren't inherently homophobic, and LGBT people aren't inherently against religion, and can we not do that, please?
Michael Yip.
This debate has splayed out into so many different areas, so my point is really going to be a very quick one. I'd like to quickly say that by and large, the students who come here are intelligent, are sensible, and do know where the limits are. And in opposing the exact wording of this motion isn't necessarily opening the floodgates for all of the socials here on campus to be racially offensive or sexist or in any way intolerant of anything that we might, as a student body, be here. And I would like to say, furthermore, that, given that this isn't necessarily a situation where the floodgate would be opened, we do have structures in place, and for those exceptions where people have been blacking up, I'm sure it's been followed up, and my point really is just to say that leave out the sensationalism, leave out the vitriol, and just send this back to the student council. Sorry.
Okay. I've got two more names down here. If anyone else desperately wants to speak with something new, then you can so. But new points. Sorry, we're going Cindy down here, Erin.
I just wanted to clarify. I do agree with what Aaron said earlier. I think this isn't an issue that should be dealt with by all students in the university. I think it should be discussed in council. And I agree that it does need to be amended. I just wanted to clarify about religious societies and the whole LGBT issue. That's the point I made, but I do think this isn't the right place to discuss it.
Okay, if there aren't any points from the floor, then you can take it in your summing up speech if that's acceptable.
Oh, I just wanted
Yeah,
to
go on.
ask then that if this is voted down, say, then you can just propose it at council.
You could put a motion through at council.
Okay, so, okay.
Okay,
Yeah. In summing up, you should vote. We believe that this is not the right type of motion that should be voted at ASM because it's not democratic and is majority voting on minority rights. And clearly there is a lot to discuss here and there's a lot to clarify. I think a lot of people don't understand the motion and do think that it is completely different to what it actually is. Like, if you read it, it's more about clarifying discriminatory costumes and themes. Clearly, however, there is a debate to be had here, so please vote it down and take it to the council again.
Okay, summing up speech against, Aaron?
I didn't write an initial speech, so I didn't write a clarifying one, finishing one either. Basically, I guess I'd actually like to use my clarifying speech to just ask people who are engaged with this week to be sensible with it, particularly, on both sides. This isn't a very sensible way of trying to solve this as an issue. So no, vote down the motion, and I guess we'll hammer it out somewhere else.
I don't think there's much call for secondary speeches for and against, so...
I can go again.
It's all right. We'll move to an
Go on.
indicative vote. So everyone in favour of the motion, clarifying rules regarding themed events, please raise your cards. Okay, everyone against? Abstentions? Okay, largely against, few abstentions. Okay, of course that is only an indicative vote, and to vote on these motions you can go online to our Warwick SU website, and it should only take a minute, so you can starting, what PM? 12 PM tomorrow midday. But we're going to move on to support the fossil-free campaign on campus, and we're going to move to Theo, who's the proposer of this motion, to speak first.
Hi there, I'm Theo. So, if it is wrong to wreck the climate, then it is wrong to profit from that wreckage. This is the premise upon which the fossil-free divestment campaign is based. Divestment is part of a much wider struggle for climate justice, in which we seek to create a political environment suitable for effective action on climate change. But fossil-free contends that through its significant financial influence, the fossil fuel industry is currently an obstacle in the way of such a political environment. It is therefore an obstacle that we must remove. If you are unfamiliar with the term divestment, it simply means to take your money out of. It's the opposite of investment. But the fossil fuel industry has got to leave up to 80% of its current reserves in the ground. This is according to the Carbon Tracker report released in 2012. However, the industry currently plans upon extracting and burning 5 times more coal, oil, and gas than even the most optimistic estimates say are safe to burn, without wrecking our climate. So what divestment does is it shows that our universities stand against that wreckage. It shows that our universities stand against the institutionalized insanity of burning those fossil fuels and the insanity of the fossil fuel industry more generally. And finally, it shows that we stand against the injustice of denying our generation a livable future. Divestment as a political tool is not a new phenomenon, however. In the past, students have effectively used it to publicly demonize and stigmatize South African apartheid, the tobacco industry, and massacres in the Sudan. Fossil Free has taken up this tool and has become the fastest growing divestment movement the world has ever seen, with student unions up and down this country and in the United States committing themselves to supporting the campaign. The campaign, however, now needs your support. Without the backing of the student union, our campaign may well fall upon deaf ears when we take it to the university administration. For this reason, we have submitted this motion, which would show student support for the fossil-free campaign and allow the SU to represent the cause on the students' behalf. Divestment has been proven financially sound, scientifically necessary, and morally imperative. Thus, we urge the student population to support our campaign and help us divest Warwick University from the destructive and dangerous practices of the fossil fuel industry. Thank you.
Would anyone on the floor like to speak against? If not, we'll move to our seconder. Yes, Jack.
One of two things will result from this motion being passed. The more likely one is that that we will be ignored entirely. The university will more than likely ignore.
Jack, do you want to hold the microphone just a bit closer to your mouth, mate? Just so people watching it back can hear what you have to say.
Apologies. One of two things will happen. It will either get ignored by the university, which is the most likely outcome, and in which case again, it weakens the core idea of our university. Or the second thing happens, where the university decides to withdraw its money, and I presume the more widely the fossil fuel movement digestion or whatever it is, movement succeeds, that it's going to remove the money from the only companies that have the capacity to keep the lights on in Britain today, and in fact the wider world. It's a bizarre thing to want to happen. As opposed to, even if it does happen and Warwick does remove all its money, it's just a unilateral action. China continues to build a coal-fired power station every week, every fortnight or something. I remember reading a statistic. All this will do is financially damage our institution, which is not in students' interest at all.
Connor Woodman, second the motion.
Hi, I haven't prepared his speech. I was going to do a rebuttal. So just on that, the fact that you don't think the university is going to concur and actually divest is kind of beside the point. The whole point is that we're trying to put pressure on them, and 9 colleges and universities in America already have, and dozens of other foundations and institutions already have divested. The head of the World Bank has actually come out in favor of this, so this isn't just a rambling hippie minority. This is actually quite a respectable position. This won't damage the university at all financially. What we want is to take the investments out of the existing investment fund and to put them back into a sustainable green fund. And studies have shown that the returns on that are just as good, if not better, than they are on the current investment fund. So there's got nothing to do with affecting us financially. A couple of other points. The fact that China is putting more fossil fuels into the atmosphere is kind of irrelevant. We're morally responsible for our own actions. This isn't just an isolated token gesture on the part of Warwick. This is actually a global movement. 350.org, which Bill McKibben set up, which is the head of the Fossil Free campaign. It's actually active in every country bar North Korea, and highly active in Europe, Britain, and North America. As I said, it's had quite a lot of successes in America. So this is actually joining a wide campaign, largely across the West. It's not an isolated movement like some token gestures might be, like the boycott on oil companies last year. This is actually about tactics. I think we can all agree that our environment is being destroyed and we are heading towards catastrophe unless we do something. Pretty much every scientist agrees on this. This is about tactics, not about the principles, and this is quite reasonable tactic that's been taken up by the environmental activist movement at the moment. I think we should be supporting it as a union. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Second person to speak against, Tom Rayner.
Hi. We don't all go along with the idea that our environment's being destroyed by man-made activities, and there are a number of us here, I accept in a minority, but a number of us that don't go along with this silly man-made global warming myth. But this university's done a lot of stupid things. It's put up a number of windmills around campus. Aren't they wonderful? I mean, you hear them whizzing around. They don't actually produce any electricity, and they cost a lot of money. It's perhaps why we don't have the money to invest in education. We made our cleaners' jobs a lot harder by having recycling. This means that rather than just having to take one bag out of kitchen waste, they now have 2 bags to take, and that's excellent again, and I'm sure we're making a huge difference. But the fact is these policies don't make the university a better place. In fact, they make it invariably worse. And on top of all of that, we now want to make it much harder for the university to invest its limited resources and the SU's limited financial reserves so that they make a good return, so that they can go back into student services. That means things, like welfare. This means things like education. If people want to vote against their money being properly invested so that it has a good return, so that it can be used to educate them, that's fine. But I hardly think that's a sensible thing to be doing personally. I certainly don't support it, and I hope most of you will see sense and object to it.
Okay, and with that, we'll go to points from the floor. We've got Lucy down first.
Hi, I'm going to speak here as the sabbatical officer with Portfolio for the Environment. So not with my postgraduate hat on for once. First of all, in response to what Tom said, I think there are many things that the university does which are more of a waste of money than windmills. And I would certainly suggest that certain recent pay rises would be one of them. But not to get onto that point now. As the second speaker said, there's no real damage to the university's investment portfolios by simply changing where we invest money. We're not stopping investing money in something. We will still be investing money and hopefully getting returns from that. I fail to see how this is a negative thing. I mean, take your point. If you don't support climate change, then that's fine, vote against this motion. The second thing was that the first opposer of this motion said, what's the point in asking if we're just going to get told no? Well, we'll never know. We'll get told no if we don't ask to start with. And I think if this is something that we believe in, and if it's something that students vote for, then we should ask. Whether they take it or not, we should ask. And this goes back to my fundamental point that I've been banging on about all night. We should have an opinion. If our opinion is that fossil fuels damage the environment, and as citizens we think damage to the environment is wrong, then we should ask. And that's why I think you should vote for this motion.
Alex Sherfield. Thanks, Kat.
Whether or not you believe in climate change, okay, fair enough, that doesn't necessarily influence how you should vote on this, although the scientific evidence is pretty overwhelming at this point. The point stands on a purely fiscal point of view, is that even fossil fuel companies are investing in green research. 30 to 40 years' time, we're going to reach peak oil, at which point fossil fuels will just not be sustainable at all. It'll be too expensive to keep the lights on in this country if we haven't researched other things. So if the university doesn't disinvest in fossil fuels, and we don't find alternative sources of energy, then the university is pretty much in trouble anyway. So from a purely fiscal point of view, it makes sense not to invest in fossil fuels.
Number 15. Hi guys, I'm Dan. I was going to just say I think it's actually an insult to the intellect in the room to implicate other people in your disbelief in anthropogenic climate change. There's overwhelming scientific consensus. If you read an IPCC report, I don't know if you accept their findings, but a conglomeration or an amalgamation of reports and scientifically peer-reviewed documents and articles by scientists from around the world who work on huge quantities of data to draw results that tell us that the climate is warming and the situation is worsening and impacts are happening now, mostly to people not in this country, although you may have noticed an increase in flooding. Don't know where you're from. Also, internationally, there's more serious repercussions. The other thing I was going to say is the money that you were referring to, which is you were saying was our money, and we should be investing it in the way that is most profitable. I think you've got 2 points there which are a problem, which is A, it's not our money. It's something called the endowment fund that we're referring to, which is a £7.2 million fund that the university amalgamates from donations from alumni and potentially charitable organisations. I don't know who they are. Should I find out? £460,000 of that is in fossil fuel companies. Divestment from that is partly to morally bankrupt the companies, but it's also a symbolic gesture in line with the movement throughout the world. It's about building a situation, a political environment where there is no social license. It's a phrase we use a lot, social license for fossil fuel industry to behave in the way it does now. You mentioned that some of them are involved in green research. BP, for example, we're all a big fan of BP, I know. BP, before Deepwater Horizon, 10 years ago, invested pittance in green research and passed and rebranded themselves at the cost of a huge amount. I don't remember how much it was they cost them, their new logo cost them. How much? At least £1 million, which they could have spent on green research, to rebrand as Beyond Petroleum. After Deepwater Horizon, they were like, well, we're going to focus on our core product, oil, sold it all off. The point is they don't care. They're after profit over human welfare, climate justice, environmental stability, ecological an ecological future and the survival of mankind. It boils down to eventually, you may disagree with that. And I forgot what my other points were, but I'll probably talk again. Thanks.
John LePage.
The nice thing about statistically verifiable claims is you don't actually have to believe in them for them to be true. So we don't really need to discuss whether people believe in something or not. I'm somewhat ambivalent because, I mean, when this issue came up before and I was science faculty rep many years ago, the people who were against it were science students who did want to work for these kind of companies because they wanted to work in sustainable research. And although, yes, it does make a small fraction of it, there are a lot of opportunities for sustainable research for students. I'm ambivalent on those grounds, but I mean, can we roll back up to Believe 6? Come on. Okay.
What do you want to go up to?
Believe 6, isn't it? Or
Believe
is it
6.
Believe 5, sorry. Can I ask, do the proposers think that the suggested resolves are in line with the university's own policy? Because if so, aren't we just asking the university to stay in line with their policy that they have already stated? I don't know the text of that, and I'd like to hear if that is actually what it says.
Number 43. Check your card if you've got number 43. Yeah. No? 22. Yeah, sorry.
So since this is probably my whole dissertation on sustainable energy, I might be a bit biased on this, but just so you know, the whole use of fossil fuels, I'm pretty sure you're all aware that it's depleting considerably, and especially with the growth in population, we are not going to even have enough natural gas or anything for that matter to burn in the years to come. So I think with being this whole fossil-free motion going on is going to actually help prepare us for what's in the future and to actually invest in something like sustainable energy, for example, solar power technologies, that can actually help you in the future become a bit cleaner and I guess more environmentally friendly. It has been shown that when you burn fossil fuels, that is on average about 5% carbon dioxide increase in emissions from since the year 1990 till now. So I think if you really want to help the environment, because if you go outside on a very sunny day, well, I don't know if you have these days in England, but from where I come from in Trinidad, you go outside and you look up at the sky, you will see the sky is extremely orange. This is due to pollution and the burning of these fuels. So I am highly in favor of this motion, and I think if you want your world to move in the right direction, I agree with the fossil-free motion. Thank you.
Jack McCann.
Hi everyone, I'm Jack. What I want to make a point on is basically the essence of this motion asks students to influence their politics on how the university manages its finances. That makes absolutely no sense, because if I want to raise my revenue and I want to make more money so I can reinvest it in things like education and welfare for students, I'm not going to worry about my politics associated with that. I'd rather have more money in my back pocket to benefit students. So it is inherently flawed to suggest that we should constrict the university's ability to invest its money based on our personal politics. That's like saying, I'm not going to invest in RBS Group just because of their lack of feelings or their feelings recently, even though their share price has gone up enormously in the last 2 to 3 weeks. So to suggest that the university should be constricted based on our own politics and not make money for students is inherently flawed. And we should probably see a financial planner, not ask the SU their opinion before investing our money in the future. Thank you.
No.
Thank you. So in response to that one, what this is proposing is not radical, but it is important. I mean, it's not just, as it's been said, it's not just a few people who are saying this. It's the UN, it's the World Bank, it's Morgan Stanley. There's reports just coming out almost weekly. This is part of a global movement, and we're in a happy situation that by moving away from fossil fuel companies, we're actually protecting our investments, the university protecting its investments, where it's not only peak oil that we need to worry about, it's the carbon bubble. Once companies realize that they cannot and use all the resources they have currently which are sitting in their, basically their balance sheets, they're going to have to write that value down, and that's where the carbon bubble is going to pop. And if we or the university has its funds, pensions funds, wherever, in those kind of fossil fuel companies, well, we're going to knock off loads of value, and that is going to cost us. So in terms of saying that this is going to be a financial implication, that's just not true. So coming to John's point, is a valid question. So the university does have a policy for what it should invest in. It's rather broad, it's also rather vague. But the one thing it does mention is tobacco. And when we were doing our research, we found they do invest in a lot of tobacco. They've made no effort at all to restrict their funds. So we have no reason to believe they've even checked it. The only thing they do say is that we're legally compliant, which is basically saying, well, nothing.
Michael Yip.
The position that I take is very simple. If it is highly probable that the returns from these investments, these these environmentally friendly investments will produce returns as high or even higher than the ones that we have now. And number two, if it is also true that the environment will benefit from this, then I, as second year student councillor, would be very happy to support this.
48.
Hey, it's just to address the point about the profits.
Hold the microphone a bit closer.
Sorry, yeah. It's just to address the point about the profits, and you're saying like we should be maximising our profits, and our politics shouldn't affect what we view. And even if we take that point, as the seconder already addressed, if we move the money out of fossil fuel industry and into the renewable energy sector, there is actually no difference. There's been a big study showing that there's been no difference in returns on the profits. So there's the first point. And then the second point, if the students in the 50s didn't use their politics to influence the way that universities invest their funds, then we wouldn't be anti-apartheid now. Like, that triggered a whole divestment process, not just in universities, but across like cities. So to say that you shouldn't use your politics to where you invest your money, like, we should all just be pro anything, like that's just ridiculous. Sorry. Done.
Kat.
Just a quick one. I think it's very interesting that people are prepared to pull the welfare card when it comes to things like this, but aren't prepared to talk about student welfare when it comes to things like No More Page 3.
Okay, we're looking for fresh points now. So we got Jack McCann.
Thanks. No, what I'm actually saying is that we want smart investment, not just purely fossil fuel investment or green investment. I'm happy to admit that science investment in green energy is great if it brings profit, which will benefit students in having greater revenue in university funds, which will then have implications in the benefit of our education welfare. What I'm saying is they would have a blanket ban on fossil fuel investment will not be beneficial for students whatsoever, given the fact that it would constrict the university's ability to invest in other sources of finance. And possibly we might need to consult a financial planner to see how that is. I'm no expert, and I suggest you aren't either.
Thomas Aver.
Following on from Jack's point, people keep talking about whether returns are better on green investment or whether they're worse on fossil fuel investment. How about we just let the university and the fund managers decide which investment is better? The university's not trying to lose money. I think we can put a safe bet on that. So instead of trying to, this building on Jack's point and other points, that we keep trying to use our politics to influence these investments. It is not our money. People talk about, we're paying fees. The fees are a transaction. It now belongs to the university. And if it's actually monies donated by alumni and other people, let the university decide how it wants to invest its money. If green technologies are sort of returning higher returns than fossil fuel investments in BP and other organisations, then the money will be changed. I just don't see why we're constantly trying to, impose our view upon the university. Let them run it how they want to run it.
Okay, all right. So we're looking for new contributions, and if you want to limit your contributions to about a minute, that would be fantastic. So we go in number 50. Was it Jack? Dan. Sam. Dan. There we go.
I forgot how I was going. Right, sorry. So the first point was I was going to reinforce Matt's point that we shouldn't entirely decide where we put our money based just on financial profit. I think that's a mistake. I realise that it's good to... No, I mean, you look surprised, but I have something called scruples, and I like to apply them in terms of how I spend my money and where I want institutions that I'm engaged with to invest. So if I'm engaged with university, and you said that we pay £9,000 to come here, and then that's the university's money, and that is true, we do pay them £9,000. I do think, though, that we are more integrally than you seem to believe members of this community, and that is an important thing. This is sort of relevant to protecting the public university. I'm sure you know what that is. And the marketisation of our education systems. This should be a place for evaluating, for free thought and thinking about how we can improve the world, not just when we leave, but also while we're here. And I think that this is one way that we can genuinely have an impact, be part of a movement that is much more future-proof than our current position.
Do you want to start wrapping up?
Sorry?
To start wrapping up.
Sorry, I'll finish. That's it.
That's great. Alex Sherfield.
I reckon you could probably make an absolute killing if you invested in the arms industry and supported wars, but equally there would be a massive, massive cost to the world if you did do that. And obviously people do invest in the arms industry, I'm not saying they don't. But the point stands is that fossil fuels are destroying the climate. I mean, you might not believe climate change is happening, but it is. We know it is. You can dispute that as much as you want, but it is. And we also know that there's a time limit on fossil fuels because we're going to run out. We're running out as we speak. We import like 2/3 of our natural gas from Norway. Like we don't have many carbon resources of our own, and we're ploughing through them at a rate knots. So given that we know fossil fuels are going to run out, given we know that there's many better investments you can make, and given we know that it's hurting the country, hurting the world, we really do have a social responsibility at play here. We need to stand up for what's right. And you might think, well, it's all money, we should just do what we want. But where does that leave us? I mean, at the end of the day, we might end up investing in loads of awful things. And what brings that on? I don't know what that was, but...
Lucy.
I feel like a broken record. We're part of this university. We're part of the Students' Union. Whether you're paying £9,000 fees that go straight from the government to the university, or you're a postgrad that sees every single pound go out of your bank account, it's your money and it's going to the university, and we do not abdicate responsibility for where it goes once it goes into the university's coffers. I think we should have an opinion, we should have ethics, we should have morals. We are citizens, we do not exist without ourselves, we cannot just be consumers. We should have an opinion, and whether you particularly agree with this or not, I think this is a valid opinion to hold, so I support this motion.
I think the feeling of the room is that we've heard most of the arguments. I'd like to move to summing up speeches unless there's a massive objection to that. Okay, I'd like to move to summing up speech. So, sorry, remind me. Theo, there we go.
Should I do it from here? Or?
Yeah, do it from there, by all means.
All right. So I think we've had a really good debate on this, and it actually has shown up sort of both sides of the argument, but it is so sad hearing that, the question comes down to what the university's profits will be. This is an issue of morality. We have shown very clearly that the university's profit margins will not be affected by fossil fuel divestment. But to continue arguing about this on this point is very, very sad, because this is over and all a moral question. It's about whether we're prepared to let the university, who do represent us, and let our money, which does represent us as well, whether we're prepared to show that support for the fossil fuel industry. And I don't think we should be. This is an industry that is prepared to let this planet burn to meet its bottom line. In fact, it has to. One of the two, either the planet or the industry, the planet being us as well, human beings, have to give out. One of the two. And I think that we've got to sort of start saying, it's not going to be us. It's going to be the industry. And so that's why we're building this movement across the world to say, we're not prepared to allow you to burn these fossil fuels anymore. We're going to say no through the power that we have, which is in this university seems to be mostly through our money. Climate change is the greatest threat of this century, perhaps the greatest threat the world has ever seen. Fossil fuel companies are prepared to see the climate wrecked to meet their bottom line. And I think this is enough for any one of us here, any sane person, to say, no more, we're not going to have this anymore. We are going to draw the line at this point and reclaim power for ourselves, reclaim some kind of sort of ability to say enough is enough. So I think that is what this motion really does. Voting for this motion will give the fossil-free campaign on this campus the ability to take the campaign a step forward, talk to the university, and lobby on the students' behalf. So that's what this is about. Thank you.
Jack Rankin against.
The first point is that to keep our energy sources viable into the future, fossil fuels are going to be a big part of that mix. If you reject that entirely, then you're not a realist. So within that framework of us needing fossil fuels into the future to remain viable as a community and a society and nations and a civilization, then within that framework, if we understand that, then it's madness to put a ball and chain on our investments that eventually the money comes to us. So, we need fossil fuels, whether we like it or not. If you're a realist, we want the best investments possible on our return on our investment possible. So if the judgment call from the fund managers in the university is that is in companies that deal in fossil fuels, then that's what they should do in our interests.
I'm going to limit second speeches to about a minute. So Conor Woodman.
Yeah, we really have heard the depths of human irrationality in the opposition today. I mean, they have an utter pathological disregard for the effects that your investment returns might have on the planet and on you and your children eventually. So I think we have to get together and say, are we going to let the planet burn? The fossil fuel industry, this is not about going off fossil fuels in an instant like that and being unrealistic as you seem to be trying to present the argument. It's about putting pressure on fossil fuel companies to turn themselves into energy companies and to put their investments into renewable and green energy, so we will have a world tomorrow. So please do away with the poor arguments and vote in favour of this motion.
Tom Rayner, final word of the ASM.
A wonderful prospect. No new points to make other than this isn't just about endowment funds. This motion says all university investment portfolio, the SU's investment portfolio and the SU's pension fund. So it's slightly more than just its endowment fund. If there were a wonderful, clean, cheap source of electricity, obviously we'd hope to be using it. There isn't at the moment. Okay, yeah, it would be wonderful if the fossil fuel companies also want to develop in that, but of course they're not going to be able to if they don't exist, and they won't exist if they don't have any investors. This money goes towards our education. If we want to improve it, then we need to keep on investing in the ways that are going to maximise their returns, and this motion stops that.
All right, indicative vote. Everyone in favour of the motion, raise your cards. Everyone against? Abstentions? A fair majority for that motion. I'm just going to keep your attention just for 1 minute. So voting opens tomorrow at 12 p.m. Tell your friends, tell your course mates, your flatmates, tell your cat, provided they're a member of the Students' Union. You've all had great points. If you want to make people know those points when they vote, you can write online so everyone can hear that. If you didn't get a chance to speak, remember to do that. Thanks everyone for coming. It's been one of the best ASM in my memories, so cheers.